Hey, and welcome to Glue Wednesday. Setting up my coffee there. Welcome to Glue Wednesday. Now, Glue Wednesday was born based on the fact that so many people say hump day, that Wednesday is hump day. That's the cliche. But it's an old school cliche from okay, from when we only really focus on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So now, and we've got less than 2 minutes. I see I got two people on the broadcast. Welcome. We've got less than 2 minutes for our message, but Wednesday was seen as hump day, as the day that we need to get over to make it to the weekend. Because of my sensitivity to vocabulary, I have decided that Wednesday is indeed the middle of a traditional 7-day week, where a traditional 7-day week, and it keeps the weekend and the week beginning together. So Wednesday is what I call the glue. GLUE. God's love undoes everything, puts us right in the prayerful mode, and makes us know that this is going to be a message of spirituality. Hey, what's up, Vic? Welcome aboard. All right. I'll get that shout out for him in there. But yeah, so that's where Glue Wednesday came from. It's just recognizing that Wednesday is, we don't have a need to get over, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not knocking people who say hump day, by the way. It's a cliche that we just tend to say. Hey, oh, Haas is there too? Great, great. Okay. But it's just a reminder that we don't need to get over. We need to get it together, and we need to keep it together. We got less than a minute to go for today's message. And I'm just, I had, my computer was not running too fast, so I can see a little bit more of a live because there's a delay. Hey, Gail, what's happening? You know, now Ramona seems to think that I had some kind of bad message coming from you. So I need to check that with you. All right. But anyway, we've got less than a minute to go for today's message, and I hope Roger Carroll gets on here soon, because she's the one who I'm really dedicating today's message to. Because if you've been with us on a few of our broadcasts, and it's 1:00, let's roll. If you've been with us on a few of our broadcasts, you've seen her put in the feed things about implicit bias, and because we've had a lot of instances where that really was the case. Hey, what's up, Joyce? Good to see you coming in from Tennessee. All right, so it's important that we recognize, I decided, you know what, this might be a good time. What's up, Sheila? This might be a good time to talk about implicit bias. So I'm going to first do an exercise. Why won't this get out of my thing here? Get out of my window. Okay. All right. Okay, I want to first I want us to first say that our message today is on implicit bias. I want us to talk about that because, you know, especially right now as racial tensions, and you know what, let me snatch that term back, because the funny thing is that the racial tension is not as much as our country's tension, because it's a combination of racial tension, law enforcement, politics, health. There's a lot of tension going on. But for us to talk about these types of tensions, we need to find ways to get past our biases. So that's why another reason I've decided to discuss racial bias, to give us some sort of a base of how you may be able to have that conversation or facilitate it with somebody else or with a group. You know, those are things that and I would be available to do that for you as well. But I want to give you this exercise and see if it's something that can at least help you understand what we're talking about more so than facilitate it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to play a game that I've created. So get your finger ready. We're going to play a game I created called Audience Feud. Now, Audience Challenge. Now, Audience Challenge is a game where I'm going to, and you may have played this with me before, so I'm happy for you. Let's see if you remember. I'm going to give you 3 words one at a time. And what I want you to do in the feed, and that's why I'm trying to check the live feed over here. What I want you to do in the feed is I want you to just type the first letter of the first word that comes to your mind when you hear each of my words. Hey, what's up, Zach? Okay, so you don't have to be a good typist. So just type the first letter of the word that comes to mind when I give you each of my 3 words. Okay, you want to do a practice round? Let's do a practice round. Okay, all right. If I were to say to you, Yellow. What would you type in the feed? First letter of the whatever word comes to your mind when you hear yellow. Go on and put it in the feed. Let me see what you got. Okay, nothing in the feed yet. But that we have to remember that. Okay, here they're coming in now. Okay, they're coming in now. So I realize there's a delay on here. Yeah. Oh, okay. You know what? There's actually it's quicker on here than it is on that live feed. So I'm just going to go with you guys. Oh, okay. I see it maybe. So Zet got a B, Shirley's got an F, Victor's got a Y. Okay, so good. Then you got the gist of how we're going to play this game. All right. All right. So that's all you needed to know. So none of those count. We're not gonna worry about that. Okay. But here I'm going to give you the word, and then I'm going to give it a 5-second delay for you to get your letter in there, and then I'll go on to the second word, okay? There's going to be no switches in the screen while I'm doing this, okay? Here comes the first word, all right? We're playing audience challenge. First word, right. Okay, here we go. Second word. And I just now saw something, Cecilia. You wouldn't have needed to write B-E-E, but you could have just put the letter B. That's fine. But I'm doing that so people don't have to worry about typing. You can just put that first letter. And then when we come back and debrief, we'll be able to catch all that. Okay, good. I see we got some letters in there. All right, cool. Second word. Win. And since I got the New York accent, I spell it W-I-N. Win. Okay, good. I see them coming in on the feed as well. Good. Y'all are going to be so excited. You'll be able to have this as a tape, and then you'll be able to say, oh, I was a part of the experiment, the exercise. Cool. All right, here we go. And the final word, okay? The final word is no. Roger Carroll, you're late, but what we're doing is you put the first letter in response to the word that you heard me say. Just put the first letter of the word that came to your mind when you heard me say each of my 3 words. And since I want you in this, I'm going to say the 3 words again for you, Roger Carroll. All right. Okay. The first word is right. The second word is win, W-I-N. And the third word is no. So Roger Carroll, just put your 3 letters in there of whatever word you would have used on those words. Okay. All right, here we go. So I see. Let's take a look at what we got here. Okay. The first word looks like we had a lot of. Let's see. Where should we start? Start after the B. So we'll start with Cecilia. Had an L there. That was the first one. Okay. Right. And then Zet had an L. Shirley had an L. Vic had a C. I want to know what the C is. Okay. Zet had an L. Vic had a D. This thing. Okay. All right. All right. Here, I'm not going to worry about the letters because we can go back and look at the letters because we'll go faster if I talk about what we just went through. Okay. So what we did was it's number one thing we have to recognize is that what did you tend to do with your first word, right? A lot of times we tend to look for opposites. And this is why I always talk about how it's control your vocabulary. Don't let your vocabulary control you. So often we look for opposites. Opposites are not the problems in our lives or in our vocabulary. Our problems in our lives and our vocabulary are when the opposites are also negative. Because a negative vocabulary will tear people down. It's the words that we say. That's why the Bible says the tongue is a small object, but it's such a powerful weapon. And see, so the words we use tear people down. I always say, and I wish I had thought to put this on there, but I'll have to put in the feed. When your words are negative, WORDS becomes what others remember destroy spirits. What others remember destroy spirits. But when your words are positive, WORDS becomes what others um, uh, what others remember, delight spirits. Okay, so the key is we have to control our words. So let's look at the first word. And when I said right, most people, especially those of you who may have put a W, I don't know if anybody did put a W. Okay, Roger Carroll did. Let's see. I don't know if anybody else did. I'm looking at the live feed real quickly. But we tend to think of wrong. We hear right and wrong. But what we have to recognize is that 93% of our communication is nonverbal. So I see Zet, I see Tony. They know my secret, and so they might have seen that I said right and I did this. And see, so the opposite of right is actually left. See, we don't have. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to lose you. I want to bring you in there. Okay, boom. Add to stream. Here we go. All right. Okay. See, the opposite of right is actually left. Let's encourage free thinking. LEFT. See, this is an ingredient of what's called implicit bias. And I'll come back to the full explanation. Implicit bias is actually a subword or a transferable word for unconscious bias. But we become so comfortable with our side of the six that sometimes we can't see how a 9 could possibly turn things around for us. So if you can see that better, yeah, we become so comfortable with the 6 because life sometimes depends, right or wrong, depends whether you're on the 6 side of the 9 or the 9 side of the 6. And bias is often a refusal to see things another way. Can you accept the fact that there are some things that you just won't understand? In fact, there are some things that you're not supposed to understand. So the opposite of right is left. We become so uncomfortable with our side of the 6 that we can't see how a 9 could possibly turn things around. You don't have a right and a wrong side. You have a right and a left side. Controlling your vocabulary makes a difference. Here's the next word. I said win. A lot of people will tend to put the L for lose. But just because we don't win, does it mean that we lose? No. Actually, winning is personal. WIN, what I need. Each of us has a personal win that reminds us that we're an important piece of everybody's puzzle. You know, so life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of every puzzle in your family, social, or business relationships. But no matter what puzzle piece size you see yourself as, without you, the puzzle is incomplete. So therefore, each of us has a personal win, something that makes us important and a valuable piece of that puzzle. Now, do we experience losses? Absolutely, yes, we do. I'm not saying that we don't lose sometimes, but the key is that we have to see a loss as an LOSS, a little obstacle that strengthens spirits, a little obstacle that strengthens spirits. And you don't want to let a loss make you a loser. Don't let a loss make you a loser, because losing is a state of mind where what we actually do is we surrender to the possibility that we are unable to bounce back. And in essence, what we do is we forget the war based on the battle. So just because we lose a battle does not mean that we are going to lose the war. And that's how you have to look at a loss. It's a little obstacle to strengthen your spirit. In other words, once you get knocked down, you say, well, you know what? Hey, I got to pick it back up. I just got to fight a little harder. If you lose a loved one, I always use the example of my mother. When I lost my mother, I thought, especially in advance, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to live without you. And we see a lot of people expressing their grief online. And I hope this is a message to you, how important it is to recognize that, yes, you are not, I think that the key is not to get over the loss of a parent or a loved one. Don't get over it. You're not going to get over it. You're going to learn to live with it. And see, when I lost my mother, one of the first things that came to my mind, Zed'll slap me later, but she knows it, was some of the meals that I wasn't going to get because I love my mother's cooking. And I said, man, I'm not going to get to eat that. And I didn't say that, but I mean, in my mind, that was one of the things that I just lost. But what I said after I thought about it, so you know what, I refuse to go without that meal. So I'm going to have to learn how to cook it. And so what I would do, whereas my mother would season things, just throwing things and talking and blah, blah, and I'm measuring this much of that. And I found that I didn't taste as good as the way she made it, but it tasted okay. And look at me, as I was preparing that meal, I was doing it ceremonially. I'm measuring stuff while she just, seasoning stuff over the back of her shoulder. And in the process of me celebrating her ceremoniously, that's became my celebration. That brought my mother back to me. And so the further, it's 12 years now, the further we get from that day that we lost her, the stronger we get. The more we see that as a little obstacle. That was a blip in our road. That when it happened, it was huge. But we see that we are still here 12 years later, and we're still doing many things that my mother has instilled in us. So now our spirits are strengthened because we say, man, she taught us that. Now we see why she said that. Now we know what she meant. And see, that's what I'm saying by a loss. It's just a little obstacle, because it throws you off. That's what grief is, but it will strengthen your spirit, because you start out saying, I can't do without this person or without this thing. And then we find out, yes, we can. Yes, we can, because of what the person actually instilled in us. And so it becomes a tribute to them more so than, than a loss of them. So what I say when you hear win, don't think about loss. Let's think about try. TRY. Time rewards you. Time rewards you. And the most important thing is you have to be patient with yourself, especially with the example that I just gave in terms of a loss, of grief. You have to be patient with yourself. You're going to get over it. You're going to get over this situation, or you're going to get through it. Let me stop. Ooh, I caught myself. See, you have to listen to your vocabulary. It's a tough thing to do. So be conscious of the words that you use. So we've got right, the opposite of right is left. We've got not the opposite of win, but don't think about a loss. Think about how important it is to try. And then the last word was no. And a lot of people, when I say no, we usually get people, a lot of people probably put a Y in there because a lot of people heard no and they put yes. But I spell no, K-N-O-W. K-N-O, right? Because knowledge is the key. Knowledge is the key. You have to really know what's going on. Let me do a share screen for you and show you something. Let me show you something that I just create, a meme that I did the other day that talked about the word no and how we have to look at it differently. All right. See, and so the meme said, sometimes you don't know until you say no. You've made a lot of tough decisions. All right. And what I wrote with that is, no can be a tough task, because some often think they're denying someone's request. Try reversing the order of the spellings. Instead of K-N-O-W, instead of putting N-O first, put K-N-O-W first. And no, taking on this new request is going to do what it's going to do to your life. And if the outcome is something that will negate something that you need to do to get your personal win for yourself, decide which action is more important. See, so therefore, if you see, if I do this for this person, it's going to take away from what I need to do for me to take care of myself. So I need to say no and not feel bad about it. Or I say, well, if I do this, is it going to really cost me anything? No, it's not. Then I can go on and be helpful. But that's why I say K-N-O-W is the key. You have to know what it's going to do for you. Because if it doesn't take care of you, you won't be a good resource for that person technically, because you'll be hurting them by doing it begrudgingly, where oh man, this is using up my time. I want to do, and you won't give it your all. So if you're not going to give it your all, don't do the favor for the person. Just say no and have a clear conscience, because you have to make sure that it's going to be something that works for you. Okay. And the other thing that I say about no is that we have to recognize that we have to know that when two or more are formed together. Oh, okay. That's for the next thing. My bad. Okay. Oh, no, it's not. It's for this one, because this is what we have to know. We have to choose our messengers carefully. That's the other part, right? Choose your messengers carefully, because when two or more form together, what? Then we know that we are in the midst of the Lord and everything is going to be all right. So know that it's going to work for you. Choose your messengers carefully. So therefore, whoever you're doing that favor for, it will be a worthwhile favor for you and for them. So now what I'm going to do is I wanted to set it up with us to look at the vocabulary. And after this broadcast is over, I'm going to go in and look at some of the letters you put in there. And hopefully you got some aha moments from that. But I want to walk that into showing you how you may be contributing to and feeding your implicit bias. More importantly, I'm going to offer suggestions and insight to avoiding or handling the triggers, because they're triggers to us showing our bias, things that happen that make us automatically respond, similar to what we just did in the challenge game. So we'll go from being unconsciously biased to understanding bias, and unconscious bias is the replacement for implicit bias. But I wanted to keep it there for the alliteration, because we want to go from unconscious bias to understanding bias. I want to keep the U's in there. We want to understand bias, because the truth is every single one of us is implicitly biased. That's the truth. So let's first start out with a definition. Bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that's considered to be unfair. In other words, it's a choice in beliefs. And biases may be held by an individual, a group, or an institution, and can have negative or positive consequences. See, bias is not automatically a negative thing. It can have negative or positive consequences depending on the situation. And we'll talk about that. There are two types of bias. Conscious bias, which is also known as explicit bias. That's where you just decide, yes, I am biased. I don't like these people. That's a conscious thing. That's what racism is. It's a conscious bias. And then unconscious bias, which is also known as implicit bias, which is what we're talking about. And the reason they have updated that, because the move is from recognizing unconscious almost signals the fact that you have totally no clue, and you can almost use it as an excuse. But sometimes implicit does mean that, yeah, you may have totally no understanding of why you're feeling this way, but then you find out some stuff about yourself and it almost justifies it. And I say almost because the key is, once you understand, then that allows you to make some changes. Because here's the key. It's important to know that biases, conscious or unconscious, are not limited to ethnicity and race. We tend to connect them to the two, but they're not limited to ethnicity and race. Though racial bias and discrimination is well documented, biases may exist toward or from any social group, age, gender identity, physical abilities, religion, sexual orientation, weight, and many more other characteristics are all subject to bias. So you can see, if we go back to that definition, and you can see that it doesn't have to be negative or positive. When you look at all of these things that it attaches to, you can see how it can be something that you may automatically, oh, well, I don't like fat people. But guess what? Sometimes a fat person might be the one that says that, and they may be using that as an inspiration to say, well, I don't like being fat, I'm going to lose weight. Doesn't automatically, okay? But here we go. Implicit bias is actually there's social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside their own conscious awareness. It's actually a learned action, okay? Or learned reflex or reaction. We just learn them. And it's an opinionated belief based on what they don't know about the other people. Everyone holds implicit beliefs or unconscious beliefs about various social and identity groups, and these biases stem from one's tendency to organize social worlds by categorizing people or experiences. So you see what we're saying there? What we're saying there is everyone has unconscious beliefs about various social and identity groups stemmed on your tendency to organize social worlds by categorizing people or experiences. So if you've never lived in a certain type, if you've never lived in the projects, you only know what you've heard about the projects. If you've never lived with white people, you only know what you've heard about white people. The same with Black people, Mexicans, Chinese, uptown, downtown, in a small town, in a large city. See, you only have what you can go, you go on based on what you've heard from the people who you've done what? Who you've chosen as your messengers. That's also why we choose our messengers carefully, because we have to recognize that we're carefully being chosen as a messenger. And so once you have an experience, you pass that experience along to the next person. I had a bad experience with this type of people. So now I'm going to tell my family and friends and children that these types of people are bad. That tends to be what happens. So that's why it's an implicit bias, because you are as the person who's receiving that information, you know no better. So if all you know is that somebody's been telling these types of people are bad, and you have no examples to say, well, they didn't do that to me, then you have to go pretty much go along with that. And so, but here's what we know in terms of the research. Implicit biases actually develop at an early age. And that's the example that I just gave, because biases, I'm giving you some research. Biases emerge during middle childhood and appear to develop across childhood. This was written by a guy named Dorr in 2014. But if we go back to our audience challenge game, I have an unofficial study whereby every time I play this game, you can see the difference in the audience's responses based on their age. For instance, when I play with young people, they tend to, when I say write, young people tend to say pencil, read, paper. See, a lot of them, same word that I just said I said right, you heard R-I-G-H-T, and you even gave it a wrong or left. But I get, depending on the age, I'll get pencil, read, paper. When I say win, they tend to say victory or me. And then some of them will scream out their favorite name, because I first started doing this in Chicago. So a lot of times I get them to scream the words out, by the way. And they say Chicago Bulls, right? So the younger the audience is, apparently, the more positive their vocabulary was. And then when I said no, this is one of my favorite ones. When I said no, the kids used to say, why? They hear that word no, and I guess they heard their parents. And so they heard no, and they heard why. And isn't that what kids, why? Why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? So is the message saying that the younger we get, the older we get, the more negative our vocabulary gets? Okay, so that's, is that what my research says? And the more negative, some will say it's because we become more realistic. People say, oh, well, I get older, I'm more realistic. In fact, social science goes on to say implicit biases have real world effects on behavior. And perhaps they're saying that the real world is one of surrender. See, we give up. As we get older, we give up on standing for what, the opposite of right is left. We just go along with it. That's what I'm saying, and then, so opposite of win is lose. No, I'm still saying that a loss is a little obstacle to strengthen spirits. Don't give up as you get older and you learn more. Learn more about that track record. Learn more about how we can get by and keep it together. But the research goes on to say implicit biases are malleable. One can take steps to minimize the impact of implicit bias. So it's saying it's not over, y'all. It's not over. We don't have to just accept that we have this bias. Well, I didn't grow up around white people, and I grew up black, and white people are bad, in terms of the racial discussion, and vice versa. Okay. But no, once we get the exposure, this is why I'm saying this is the type of thing we can use to have the conversation. Are we going to listen to one another? Because it's the empathy. I started out with thinking that this message today was going to be about empathy, and I decided, well, let me talk about implicit bias as a part of that empathy. Are you willing to listen to what somebody else's experience is? So that can help you change your mind or keep your resolve about what you think. You don't have to change your mind, but are you at least going to understand what the other person is going through or why they feel that way? There may be there's a lot of cases of agreeing to disagree, but at least let's try to put ourselves in position to where we can understand. And what they say is that a substantial amount of research has been published demonstrating that the impact of implicit bias in various domains, including the criminal justice system, education, and healthcare field. That the biases have an impact on hiring, mentoring, and may even contribute to healthcare disparities. Listen to this one. We're in a healthcare disparity or hiring or mentoring where someone may not want to treat a certain type of person, or someone doesn't want to be treated by a certain type of person. So imagine if you're the person in the hospital and you say, well, no, I don't want that type of a doctor to treat me. See, that becomes your implicit bias. Or the doctor who says, I don't want to treat those types of people. This is where it can get in the way. So that's why understanding becomes so much more important. That's also showing you why your choice of career field makes a difference as well. So here's the last thing I want to do, and I want us to have this exercise. So you're going to need to type a little bit on this one, okay? But it's really just a couple of words. What I want you to do, I'm going to show you a picture. And with this picture, I want you to write down one sentence about what you see in this picture. And this is really going to close us out well. I want you to write down one sentence that you see in this picture. And when you write that sentence down, I want it to start with these two words, I see. Okay? So that's how I want you to start your sentence. I see. Okay, here comes the picture. There's the picture. And your sentence, go on and write, I see, and tell me what you see in that picture. Now I'm reading some of the comments. I love that. Glad you're on, Roger Carroll, because I knew this was your topic. Doctors may be biased that Black folks have a higher pain threshold, right? That could have something to do with your choice in physician. We can't stop getting chronologically older, but we can keep our perspective green and growing. Okay, good. I'm not going to have time to read all of them, but let's see how we did. We got I see. Great. We've got some ICs in there. Okay, now I'm just going to show you what that exercise is all about. Because what happens is, depending on whether you wrote or what you wrote, I see two boys, I see kids, and then what order, if you wrote I see white and black, or whether or not you wrote I see black and white, these are tenets of implicit bias. And what I want to say to you is, there's a school that does the study on it, the University of California in San Francisco. If you want to go to their site, and I'm going to put that in the chat as well so that you can click right on it. But there's a test that they have there called the implicit bias test. And as you take that test, you'll see how you score on implicit bias. Okay. I keep forgetting that I can't put a thing on this computer. I'll have to do it on the other computer when I get a chance. After this session is over, I'll put that in so that you can just click on the link. Okay, but depending on how, what you saw in that picture, did you see two boys? Did you see two kids? Did you see a white and a black kid? Or did you see a black and a white kid? See, all of that becomes part of our unconscious bias. So that's my challenge to you is remember that, you don't want to inherit somebody else's relationship. Build your own. Take the test and see how you are in terms of your implicit bias. And that will help you contribute to different conversations about race, about police brutality, about politics, about life. But don't just take it from what somebody else says. Choosing your messages carefully again, make sure you find out what you think. And when you take the test, you'll see what it does. It's not a time test, but it does ask you to go with your first inclination, similarly to how we did the audience challenge game. And then it'll give you a score. Please remember that thing is just, that's an opinion. And we're in the moment and what's going on in your mind. If you take that same test again, your score might differ. But it becomes a part of what's going on with your intake of information. But that's why I say build your own understanding from the inside. That's why I think it's important to like yourself rather than just love yourself. Liking ourselves is the cherry on top of the cake. Because a lot of times people will say that they love themselves. See, that's why I have my face mask for love, LOVE, let ourselves value everyone. All right. And so a lot of times we talk about how we love ourselves, but a lot of times we'll say we don't like ourselves. We'll say, I don't like how I look in this outfit. I don't like how I answered that question. I don't like how I did that. So a lot of times we're telling ourselves what we don't like about ourselves. Let's make sure that we continue to talk about what we do like about ourselves, so that when we share love, we share it in the highest form. And take that test and get a look at yourself and see what your implicit bias is. And Roger Carroll, I'm definitely going to talk to you. I hope this is something that you'll be able to use. But it was because of the amount of times that you put that in the feed that encouraged me to do a little bit on it. And I did a quick one on it. I have a more full exercise that people can use. But when I did it live. So I'm working on adapting it to virtual. But I hope that also shows the rest of you. If there's ever a topic you want me to discuss, put that in the feed or send me an email on it or an inbox message on it. And you can email me at sporty@sportyking.com, because this is our glue, because we're keeping it together. So that's why I want to just show you once again, put your face mask on, wear your mask, and take care of everyone. I shout out to my good friend, Amy Cooper, who made this for me. She was one of my students when I taught a class in Chicago. But I love how she took that acronym of mine and made this for me. But what she also did was she made this one reversible, where it's a picture of the American flag. And I definitely swear and honor by the American flag. I think that we want to make America, we want to make America great, not worrying about making it great again. Let's make America great. And then let's continue to do that by making sure we get our personal wins and make ourselves great. So thanks again for joining me. I'm going to end this because, like I said, I can't really comment over here on this feed, but I can go into the live feed after I close the broadcast and then make some comments there. But I just want to thank all of you for joining me again. And everything is going to go fine. So, get a little crack up laugh about whatever you put in the feed, and see how it went with the research. But remember, research is not automatically about you. Oh, okay. Oh, both Celia and Roger Carroll say that Harvard has an implicit bias. Oh, and y'all wrote that before I actually showed it. Okay. So Harvard has one too. And but the one that I saw was, it was back in 2017 that I had done that and found that out with University of California in San Francisco. And what is that? Is she selling the love mask? I'm going to give you, I'm going to put her face mask in, because she does sell them. I don't know that she manufactured the love one. She made those for me, but but she does do the masks. So I'll make sure that I put her name in the feed if you'd like to contact her. All right. So thank you again. God bless you. And I'll see you on Friday for Glue Friday. Stay safe.